Today we're going to compare the evolution of the internet versus the evolution of Bitcoin. Because when you actually line them up next to each other, you start to realize something crazy. Bitcoin is the fastest adopted technology in human recorded history. Faster than smartphones, faster than social media, and yet most people still think we're late. Brother, we are not late. We are in chapter 1. But most people don't know that because they're only looking at the price instead of looking at the technology and the timeline. And here's what most people miss. Every world-changing technology looks useless, dangerous, or ridiculous at the beginning. The internet did, cars did, electricity did, and Bitcoin does today. You hear people say Bitcoin is bad, scammers use it, criminals use it. Brother, criminals used the internet before you used it to scroll on Instagram. Everything humans have ever created was used for something shady in the beginning. That doesn't make the technology bad, it makes it new. Just like the internet took decades to become the thing you use every day, Bitcoin is still a teenager. It's literally just 16 years old. You're going to understand exactly why Bitcoin is still in its infancy, why patience is everything, and why the next decades are going to be absolutely massive. Hey everyone, I'm Victor on Web3, and every week I break down crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and everything happening in the Web3 world in a way that actually makes sense. If you're into the Web3 world, hit subscribe and join the community. Let's dive in. So I've created this diagram for us, or these timelines between Bitcoin history and the internet history, so we can better compare them between the two and understand the difference in evolution of the internet and Bitcoin. The internet started as a military project during the Cold War in 1969, so long time ago, almost 50 something years ago. In 1969, the Advanced Research Project Agency Network, or ARPANET, was designed to keep communication lines open even in the event of a nuclear attack. It was a network of computers, basically, that could communicate with each other, even if some parts of the network were damaged. This was a revolutionary concept in that time, and it laid the groundwork for what would eventually become the internet we know and love today. We can see internet history. This is the start in 1969, so long time ago. 10 years, 20 years, and only after 20 years, in 1989, we have the World Wide Web. Some people say, oh, Bitcoin is bad because it's used by scammers and criminal activities. But look, the internet was not even meant to be for commercial use. They just used the internet and created it because out of necessity in a war, in warfare. The internet began as a military project. It wasn't meant to be globally adopted and for commercial use. And only after 20 years, and just to remind you, Bitcoin is not even old for 20 years. It just started in 2009, it was created, and now we're 16 years into Bitcoin, since Bitcoin inception. So only 16 years. And we needed 20 years just to create the World Wide Web. My friend Tim Berners actually invented the World Wide Web. So good job, Tim. So he created the World Wide Web in 1989. Tim Berners, I know you're watching this video. I just want to thank you for creating the World Wide Web. You are a legend, brother. Then only in 1993, they came up with the first web browser. So as we can see, the internet needed 14 years just so we can come up with the first web browser. It needed 20 years for the World Wide Web to be created, and then after this, 14 years just to create the first web browser. And Bitcoin is just 16 years old. Still, we're so early, brother. See the bigger picture. Netscape was the first browser, and they transformed the internet from a complex system used by scientists and academics into a tool that everyone with a computer could use. and this is the web browser. This was allowed by the first web browser. Then you already know in 1999, this is the year I was born, many companies were starting up based solely on the internet business models known as .com. This is the .com boom. And there was a major crash around the 2000s. This period paved the way for today's tech giants like Amazon and Google. The next big step was Web 2 in 2004 2005. It changed how we communicate, and you were allowed to share content online, and these platforms and websites basically allow us to interact with each other in real time. You know, where this is where the first social media came up. In 2007, my friend Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. So with the launch of smartphones around 2007, particularly with the introduction of the iPhone from my friend Steve Jobs, the internet became portable, and now we could access information anywhere, anytime with mobile apps. This revolutionized how we use the internet and made it an integral part of our daily lives. Now that we're in the era of the internet, then Internet of Things came up, everything started booming. Now we have smart fridge, smart home, smart everything. Then we have AI, which is not really connected to the internet, but still AI, the internet allows for AI. Now let's look at the Bitcoin history. It started in 2008 when my friend Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin. And no, I will not talk about the timeline in terms of the Bitcoin price. We don't care about the price action over here. We care about the technology itself. Then after a few years, we led to one of the most critical debates in Bitcoin history, the block size controversy. The question was, Bitcoin blocks had a limit on how much data they could hold, and that limited how many transactions could be processed. As Bitcoin became more popular, the network was starting to hit the limit, and transactions were taking longer, fees were rising, and some people believed that the answer was obvious: just raise the block size, allow more transactions in each block, and you solve the problem. But others pushed back, and they argued that raising the block size would make the blockchain grow too large and eventually make it difficult for regular users to run a full node, and that would reduce decentralization. And to them, that was a much bigger problem than high fees. And this disagreement sparked what became known as the block size war. Multiple new versions of Bitcoin software were released that tried to change the block size limit, like Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin Unlimited. They had different ideas for scaling, but none of them were adopted by the majority of the network. And we still have the Bitcoin that we have today without increased block size limit. We have Bitcoin Cash now. They all separated with forks. They forked off the main Bitcoin network. They created their own fork, and we can see they're not really successful today, if we measure success by market cap at least. And suddenly there were two competing versions for what Bitcoin should be, but the original Bitcoin, now more united around the idea of a small, secure, and scalable, pushed forward with its own upgrade. And this upgrade was in 2017, the SegWit upgrade. This change didn't raise the block size, but it optimized how data was stored in each block. It was a major breakthrough that increased transaction capacity and laid the foundation for further innovation, introducing the Lightning Network, a solution designed to allow fast and cheap transactions off-chain. SegWit was activated just days after the Bitcoin Cash split and marked as a critical moment where the Bitcoin community proved it could evolve without abandoning its principles. Then in 2021, we have Taproot, which is another upgrade Bitcoin has. Just in today's age, in 2025, we have the spam wars. There is a discussion and split among the Bitcoin community for what is spam, what is not spam in Bitcoin network, and there is a potential Bitcoin soft fork coming again in 2026. I'm going to make a separate video about the Bitcoin soft fork, so make sure you're tuned in for that. So we can see Bitcoin is still in its infancy compared to the internet. The internet needed 20 years just from its inception to come up with the World Wide Web, and they needed another 14 years to just come up with a web browser. If you'd like to consult with me about anything crypto related, make sure to email me at victor@hitrust.io, and until next time, peace out.